Power Talks. Welcome to Power Talks. I'm Beth Ann, and say good morning to my partner, Melody, as we co-host together and empower you with the truth. Good morning, Melody.
Good morning, Beth Ann. Good morning, listeners. It's August 8th.
It is. Do you know today is 1 week? We started last Tuesday. So here we are. We're a week. Got a week of shows under our belt, girl.
Well, what do you know? And here's to
number 6.
And here's to many, many more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we've got some, I thought we'd start out with a little humor today, but I do want to give out the phone number because we're doing this for you. This is your voice, the forgotten man, the forgotten woman, those who don't get to talk on all the other talk shows. You could talk right here, right now at 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. We ask that you keep it on topic, though, so we can at least pretend we know what we're talking about, right, Melody? So we thought we'd start out with something humorous, and Melody sent me this article. She says, this one's for you. And then there was another one we had that we both had actually picked up that we thought was pretty funny. But Maxine Waters, I like to pick on Maxine because she's constantly putting her foot in her mouth and just constantly makes no sense. And she goes on her little tirades. I kind of like to watch her do that. She makes me angry, but I kind of like to watch her do it because she makes herself look so foolish. Well, she's decided that if necessary, they should have an all-black political party. Now, that's not racist or a bigot or anything, is it, Melody?
Absolutely not.
This came from, I guess she was at a breakfast club, the radio show, and that was on Monday, which was yesterday, and she was asked if it was time for the black people to form their own political party. No, not at this point, she said. You have to show that you're willing and you're able to put the numbers together and exercise your influence. So it wasn't because she was against it. She just didn't have enough people for it yet. She says, we still are not voting our influence yet. What we should do is organize our power, exercise our power, particularly in the Democrat Party, because that's where most of us are. She has gone off on a tirade so many times, and of course she's vowing to get rid of Donald Trump. She wants to impeach him. She wanted to impeach him after the inauguration. She's been going on her tirades for such a long, long time, and she makes no sense. She claims to represent the poor black, and yet she doesn't live in the district, and she has a home worth several $1 million. And we don't imagine that she's come by all that wealth in an honest way. This says that a lot of them in the party don't like her. I don't know why.
These people do they even think about what they say? Or they just ramble on and think they have a talk show and just ramble on about anything? But, it's like, does she even know the math? Does she even know that, if she went for a black party, blacks make up, 13% of our population? So, and a regular third party, look how often there were third parties that tried to get off the ground and, they have failed. And so, again, it's just, when is she due to retire? How old is she?
She's getting up there.
Good grief.
What was I going to say? The party that she represents, the people she represents, I wonder if they know. And you mentioned they ramble on and on. Do they not know that everything they say in politics is recorded? Somebody else can pull it out later. I mean, how many times have they done that? And not just them, Republicans too. They make a promise or they make a statement, and then 6 months to 12 months or 18 months later, they come out and they're saying the opposite. They've totally switched. But like Hillary, they'll say, no, this is the way I always was. It's like, do they not know that their speeches are recorded?
The sad thing is people have short memories. So they don't remember what they said 6 months ago, a year ago, or 6 years ago. So, and politicians know this. politicians know the memories of the citizens, of the population, the general population, is very short. People seem to forget what happened. And particularly in finances, which I'm so involved in. You go back and you talk about the Great Recession of 2008. Has everyone forgotten? And they have.
Has it ended yet? I don't think
Actually, we've never been out of any of the recessions that were created since 1987. So
yeah, it's Maxine Waters is an example of the stupidity in politics, because. And unfortunately, we the people seem to follow along like little sheeples, You remember the little sheeple test that was going around here a few years back. But we talk about the memories of the people. They're so busy. They're so busy trying to make ends meet because they've created this inflation. They've created the recessions. They've created all this and caused a burden on we the people. And all they're trying to do is survive and raise their families and it's just amazing to me how long we've put up with this stuff. And like you said, the third parties have always failed, and it's because they can't get enough support, because people have fallen into this the two-party system, and they think that's how it has to be. How many parties does Israel have over there? They've got oodles and gobs of political parties.
And it doesn't help them.
No, it doesn't help them. They still probably have a couple of strong ones.
Yeah. So, I guess we could have that here. We could have a dozen. We certainly had more. Actually, we had more in this election that actually garnered some discussion on the news channels during the election. You had the Green Party, and then you also had the independents.
Right.
But what was his name? Gary Johnson?
Yeah.
I think he was on pot most of the time, and I saw some of his interviews.
Well, they
were entertaining, to say the least.
They had the Constitution Party too, and I actually interviewed him, and I was disappointed. I think he was a good man. I think he had wonderful intentions. I was just disappointed with his ability to organize. And you can't be a president if you can't organize a party. And it was because I went down and I spoke and helped them with their convention. They had it here in Missouri, and it was, or at least the Missouri side of it anyway. And he was a good guy, but I was disappointed. And they can't win, and I know that everybody gets upset with me when I say that, and I don't like saying it, but we can't seem to get it boosted up enough. Do I think you throw your vote away? No. I think if you vote your conscience, you're not throwing your vote away. That's what it's for. Doesn't mean you'll win. No, it doesn't mean you'll win. I've lost many an election with who I voted for. And we have an election today in the state of Missouri. We're going to be replacing, it's a special election to replace a representative here in my district, and I will be going and voting here later on. But it's
you mentioned one thing about organization. I remember back in the Great Recession.
I'm a big one to mention that, as disorganized as I am.
Or organizing, I should say. The Constitutional Party, he had a difficult time organizing, some sort of a base and so forth. But I remember going back to the Great Recession, and gasoline prices were nearing $5. Some places it was $7, and the people that were really hurt by it were the truckers. And I have a lot of clients that are truckers, so I talk to them and I hear from them and I get their opinions, and you truly get an idea of what's going on across this country in a time of crisis that we were having at that point in time. And I can remember talking to several of them because it was all this big discussion, and everybody was talking about there was going to be this big, convoy to D.C. of truckers. They were going to shut down D.C. and so forth and whatnot. And I was talking to this one. He says, it's not going to happen. He says, as much as, people want it to happen, he says, we can't organize. There's no organization. And when you mentioned that, it brought me back to that. It's like, why does the groups, the venue that really want to do something have such a hard time organizing? And I think it's because there's so much infiltration from various other interests that really keeps it from happening. And
it takes a lot of work, too.
Takes a lot of work, but I do believe a lot of it is being infiltrated, and the confusion to keep it from being organized is created.
Well, think about the Tea Party. The beauty in the Tea Party is the successes they had without any organization, but the reason it couldn't get anywhere was because it had no organization. So it was a catch-22 there. It made a big impact because it was the voices of the people that never were heard. But then it never could really get off the ground because they
Do you know why it couldn't get off the ground? Because they were caught lying. They were promising things. Then when they got there, they didn't follow through. That was their problem.
That sounds like a Republican Party.
They didn't follow through.
Yeah.
And they just flopped on what they said they wanted to do, could do. And again, it's like the American people were being lied to. I mean, here was a little bit of hope. I think that was the first hope on the conservative side, that here you were going to get these young conservative people that were going to go in there and fight. And, it just...
And I think some of them tried. I think they did try. But I think they got swallowed up in D.C. I think they just literally got swallowed up. We see that going on even now with a few Republicans that are trying to do the right thing. And back in the day, in the revolution of our nation with our founding fathers and those who wanted to fight for independence, who wanted all this king out of their lives, there was only 2%, 3%. There wasn't very many that were fighting. They didn't want to get involved. Oh, I'm busy. I don't want to do that. And you and I have sacrificed a lot. I know that I have sacrificed the last 6.5 years, and I know you have too, to try and keep a voice out there. And I know people want that voice, but, to me, my other radio show and some of yours, they should be really flourishing so we can be that voice of the people, but it just doesn't happen because everyone is so busy trying to do their thing. They want to hear what we have to say, but it's just something that takes time, it takes money, it takes effort, it takes sacrifice, Melody. It does, and we have done that. Now, this was supposed to be our funny segment.
Yeah,
this was supposed to be our funny segment. We got off all on.
Well, in some degree, to some respect, it is. Go on.
I wanted to mention Al Gore, his sequel to Climate Change. It basically tanked at the box office. And it was his voice. It was everything him, just like Al Gore. And it said somebody was talking last night, and they said, well, maybe you should get somebody else to narrate it. Nobody likes listening to him. And I thought, nobody really likes Al Gore. Nobody really likes him, and it's a hard sell when you're just lying. He's claiming one thing, but he lives a different. He doesn't live what he preaches. And therefore, nobody's going to really take him seriously. At least I won't take him seriously. And I believe in climate change. We call it seasons here in Missouri. Well, we're going into a break. Your calls are welcome at 717-300-1218. We have one more funny story. You're not going to believe it, but it's about Hillary Clinton. 717-300-1218. And Melody and Beth Ann with Power Talks. We'll be right back.
Hear it first on FirstAmendmentRadio.com and FirstAmendmentRadio.net.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Have you seen the Left Behind movies? Have you read the Left Behind fictional book series? Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. Because they see the world stage shaping to fulfill what they have been led to believe is sound biblical interpretation, a left-behind rapture scenario, this false view of prophecy is reinforced in the mind, not only of its adherents, but also includes those who have been merely exposed to the specific media. Is it possible that false prophecy can be fulfilled? The rapture theories have always been in dispute. Pre-trib, mid-trib, and post-trib disputes have risen up in exclusively evangelical circles of recent history, so that when true believers don't suddenly disappear, this element will easily go by the wayside when all see a new Jewish temple begin to be built. Will this be part of the great delusion that will come upon the whole earth? It seems that this great prophetic delusion has already overcome practically the entire American evangelical and Christian world. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. To learn more, visit crosstheborder.org. That's CROSS, crosstheborder.org.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
And we have returned with Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning. The number to call is 717-300-1218. That's 717-300-1218. Okay, we have a couple more. Well, I have one more that I thought was funny. And what even makes it funnier is that I was looking at it and laughing about it, and then Melody sent me some articles she's looking at, and she goes, this one's for fun and for humor. And so Hillary Clinton's longtime pastor reveals that she wants to preach.
Do we need to say any more?
It says Hillary may be headed from politics to the pulpit. In 2016, Democrat presidential candidate told her longtime pastor William Shalati, I don't know how you pronounce his name.
You did good.
She would like to pursue a position in spiritual leadership. Spiritual leadership. This is coming from the Atlantic Reports. He says he's the executive director of the United Methodist City Society. And told the magazine, given her depth of knowledge of the Bible and her experience of caring for people and loving people, she'd make a great pastor. And as as I'm reading that, I'm thinking about how she says the unborn has no constitutional rights, and if a child is accidentally born alive, they should be just put aside and allowed to die. So when they talk about her knowledge of the Bible and her experience of caring for people and loving people, I guess they don't mean babies. And it goes on here to say it's been there. Let's see. I'm trying to. Shalati is the author of a new book, Strong for a Moment Like This: The Daily Devotions of Hillary Rodham Clinton. And he said she didn't really inspire him or ask him to write that, but he felt compelled to write that. So they're going to push her off. I guess they want to get that evangelical vote now.
Oh, my gosh.
It's, she... It says people don't recognize that. She doesn't talk about her Christianity. Well, because of the politics. And I'm thinking people don't recognize it because we don't see the fruit.
She doesn't live it.
She doesn't live it. There is no fruit to recognize her faith walk. You can quote all kinds of nice warm fuzzies. That doesn't mean you're walking in faith. And of course, all of us stumble. I stumble every day. But I mean, all of us stumble. But it's amazing to me that they would use that and bring that out right now. All the dead bodies that seem to be in the wake of the Clintons. It's just amazing to me.
I mean, it's just given her depth of knowledge of the Bible. Are you kidding me? And her experience. Well, she has a lot of experience. I'm just not sure that it's related at all to the
they act like she's
book.
Been working in the nursing home or the nurseries, It's caring and loving people. I've never seen her be a caring and loving person, not genuinely. I saw her when all those families were upset over the loss of their loved ones in Benghazi. What does she say? What difference does it make? Where's the loving compassion for those who lost their loved ones?
And then she actually lied that it was a video.
Told the family that.
Told the family.
Yeah. So. I don't see the loving compassion. There is no fruit. I can't say she's not a believer. I can't read what's in her heart, but the fruit is not there to exhibit her faith. Well, President Donald Trump has started wanting to check out the voter fraud in each one of our states. And the Democrat Party has been against that. Have you noticed that?
Really?
They aren't for that. They don't want just a waste of money. And I think that is just so ironic because they're screaming and yelling that Russia invaded, and that Russia colluded or intruded into tried to manipulate our elections, and yet they don't want it checked out. Well, this is an article coming from the Daily Signal, I do believe. No, the Daily Bell, I believe it was. But anyway, 10 of 11 California counties with more registered voters than voting age adults, and they happen to be Democrat. And it lists them here, and I'll put it on my show's Facebook page if you want to look at it. You just go to CSC Talk Radio, and it'll be on that. But this is coming from Judicial Watch as part of where they've gotten this information. And but that's amazing. You've got more people registered to vote than they have voting age in these 10 counties, 10 out of 11. And they are the ones that went Democrat. So it's amazing to me how much we're putting up with, Melody. How much we're being fooled. It's a racket.
It really is. And I just saw the headlines here in Maryland, the state of Maryland, that they were trying to have non-citizens being able to vote.
Well, President Barack Obama encouraged that.
Yes, he did.
Year.
Yes, he did. And we have a Republican governor. The first one in a very long time. But I'm not so sure how Republican he is. But so...
Well, it was a big deal when that governor from, I lost it. Was it West Virginia? No.
Virginia?
Yes, that just defected. He went from Democrat to Republican.
Oh, no, that was West Virginia.
Okay, that was because it was a coal mining state. And, the Democrats have let the coal miners down because they're throwing the EPA at them and everything else. And I don't know. I think it's a game. I think it's a racket with both parties. There's a few in there maybe that are trying to do some good, but they've got to fix the elections so they win. Hillary fixed it so she beat Bernie Sanders, and we may be grateful for that because he was getting quite a following.
Yeah. I'm not so sure where that governor in West Virginia is coming from. Most of his family was Republican for many, many years, and but he's a billionaire. And to me, a billionaire in West Virginia, the two just
suspicious.
He's a coal. He's made a lot of money in the coal industry, and he has some issues in his background, and people will say that like him, well, you can't become a billionaire unless you have, trouble along the way. Well, you know what? That's not necessarily, it depends on what type of trouble you have.
I must be heading to be a trillionaire then, because I'm having plenty of troubles along the way. That's not true. Financially, yes, I've never been overly blessed, but I have been very blessed in other ways. But,
his business policies and his transactions were not
totally honest.
Well, I guess depends on what side you're on, but there's been questions as far as his honesty and so forth. But
I know the Democrat Party's mad at him because they say they threw a lot of money into his campaign so he would win, and now he's defected. The Democrat Party's mad at him, and of course the Democrat Party's broke. They can't, I don't know why Soros doesn't give them the money instead of all these protesters. But
well, they have more impact, just like Michael Bloomberg. He has more impact buying a lot of votes or buying a lot of elections in various states and different localities and so forth than if he just funneled all his money into the DNC. So he has a bigger impact that way. They're going to have to be funneling some money into Fannie and Freddie. There was a report they could need a taxpayer bailout as much as $99.6 billion if we had a severe economic downturn. And I think if you listen to pretty much anyone that's just a little bit financial savvy, that we're all waiting for a massive, severe economic downturn. When we're just waiting for it, it's just around the corner. So it looks like Fannie and Freddie will need $99 billion from you and me, the taxpayer. The Federal Housing Finance Agency released the results of a stress test that examined just how the mortgage finance companies would perform in what's called a severely adverse scenario. This isn't the first time they've had the stress test. This isn't the first one since 2008. So my question is, and each stress test that they've had shows that Fannie and Freddie is going to need a taxpayer bailout, but that doesn't seem to stop them from doing, to keep it from getting any worse. Why? Because it's part of the system that keeps the system going, and nobody really cares. As long as it's going, the people don't care. But the two government-sponsored enterprises have operated under federal conservatorship since 2008. 2010, the Obama administration amended the 2008 agreement to require that Fannie and Freddie send all their profits to the Treasury and draw down remaining capital buffers until they reach zero in 2018. And depending on the accounting treatment of certain deferred tax assets both companies hold, they would be able to tap between 158 and 223 billion in a severely adverse scenario. So, again, another major agency, government agency, that will be crying for a bailout from the taxpayers.
We're going to be heading into a break here shortly, but my question is, what would happen, what catastrophe would happen if we let Fannie and Freddie fail? I mean, you're the wise person here financially. What would happen if we let Fannie and Freddie fail?
Well, the problem
we
is
keep bailing these bankers out. We keep bailing everybody out, and American people don't get any bailout.
We don't
even get a tax cut.
No, we don't get any benefits, but it's just another part of the problem that shows that this country is so bankrupt that there really isn't anything. They're just going to let it go until it does collapse. And that's the problem. They can't fix it because this country is bankrupt. And yesterday I saw Warren Buffett. He's all concerned about having almost $100 billion in cash. Well, he could bail out Fannie and Freddie. It's almost the same equivalent amount of money. So he can bail them out, right?
Well, I'm all for that. The American people don't have the money, and instead of giving it to them, why don't they divide it amongst the American people?
So, I mean, it's just, and there was another report. How soon are we to a
We're
break?
not to a break. I was in my other show in my head. I'm sorry. I go into a break on it at the bottom of the hour. I was thinking, we're getting close to a break. I apologize for that. I'll get these two shows sorted out here pretty soon in my head.
But American consumers have just hit another milestone. They now collectively have the most outstanding revolving debt, credit card debt, in U.S. history. This was according to a report that was released earlier this week by the Federal Reserve. Americans have $1.021 trillion in outstanding revolving credit as of June of this year. The previous record, April 2008, when consumers had a collective $1.02 trillion in outstanding debt. So we just passed it by just a little bit, but we finally passed that milestone. I mean, this should be a wake-up call to Americans. I mean, even if you feel your debt is manageable right now, what happens when you have that unexpected emergency? And I'll guarantee you these credit cards, the amount of debt has been paying for a lot of those unexpected emergencies along the way. They're just not out there buying shoes and clothes. They're out there buying food and paying for their daily and weekly needs. It's just not going on trips and vacations anymore. But young couples start out with houses that are bigger than their parents or grandparents. They don't start out in rentals or trailer. I started out in a trailer. We bought a used trailer when we got married, and it was small. It was very small. And, they don't – they're encouraging the American people, young and old and everywhere in between, to live in debt because that's what keeps this stuff propped up, but it can't be propped up forever. This is the first time since the Great Recession that lenders have given more consumers with subprime or below average credit scores access to credit cards. They have to continue to create debt in this country. They have to continue to have the consumer buy. We're 70% consumption by the consumer. That's the type of economy that we have. They have to keep buying. So, hey, these lenders think, we'll go ahead and do subprime lending in credit cards. We're just not going to give them, a $50,000 limit or a $20,000 limit. We'll just keep those limits low, but that way they'll just keep spending and keep this economy going for just a little bit longer. And, people are being used. The people who can afford it the least are being used by the bankers, by Wall Street, by this government, just to keep things going, just to keep it going, to make that confidence strong, to make sure that, hey, they don't sell their shares, that they don't, that there isn't any type of ripple. Because we're not going to have a ripple when it comes. We're going to have a tsunami that's going to hit the shores of this country. Well, that's what I was
going to ask you. If this collapses, and we know it's going to.
It's not a matter of if.
Okay, I was wrong wording. When this collapses, what do you foresee happening? Will it be overnight? People will wake up in the morning and everything will be black? Or is it going to happen next week when we have 2 weeks from now when we have the eclipse? I mean, what do you foresee happening as the pains of that hit?
I believe what we're experiencing now is the slow collapse. I believe what we're experiencing now with these highest stock market prices based on no fundamentals, everything to keep this thing going, it is the slow journey to the collapse. I do believe we will wake up one day to a brand new world. I do believe it will happen overnight, and I do believe people can lose anywhere from 60-70% of their money overnight. They won't have a chance to protect it. They won't have a chance to save it. This is the time you have to save it and to protect it and to insure it. Because once we wake up that day, and I don't think anyone knows the timing of this. Oh, you hear gobs of predictions and gobs of time frames and, and people get all shook up and so forth. I mean, I've even seen, as you mentioned, August 21st, I read yesterday that there's actually some cities that are preparing for catastrophic losses, weather-related type situations. That they expect could happen that day. It could be anything. It could be a natural catastrophic event. It could be yesterday I talked about Russia that is pulling back on processing their transactions in the dollar. It's something little like that could just transform into something big. So you never really know when it's coming. But I do know about debt. And I do know about the amount of debt this country holds. 20 trillion plus. This country is bankrupt. I don't care how many tax cuts you can have. I don't care how many infrastructure programs you can create. The only thing that they're doing is kicking it down a little bit longer, kicking that can a little bit longer down the road. They had the opportunity in 2010 to fix things. They could have let some things fail. We could have addressed our monetary problems, and it would be painful. But we wouldn't be. But that pain in 2010 is nothing like what we're going to experience now.
Right.
Because in those past 8 years, it went from 10 trillion, 8 trillion to 20 trillion plus. So again, and when you have that amount of debt, when you already Traficant back in the 90s, he said this country is bankrupt, and he went to jail shortly thereafter. We've been bankrupt for a very long time. But this year, total household debt, including housing, auto loans, and student loans in the U.S. also surpassed the 2008 peak. So again, we're right back making comparisons to 2008 where we were. Do people really believe we're better off today than we were back in 2008 in order to handle more debt? The debt changed a little bit. Back in 2008, there was a lot more household debt, subprime household debt, and it changed it to autos and, as I just mentioned, autos, credit cards, and student loans, so that the type of debt changed, but the amount of debt is the same. I don't see wages rising to support that debt. I don't see full-time jobs, more hours supporting that debt. So again, look around. Are we better off today than we were in 2008? I don't think so.
I don't think we are either.
No, the Federal Reserve report also showed debt delinquencies of 90 days or more have improved a little bit except for student loans. About 10% of student balances are 90 days or more delinquent. There's over $1 trillion in student loans. So interesting numbers, and again, it doesn't show we're better off. There's more reports of auto loans that have fallen into delinquency. That has hit their highest level since 2010, back in December of 2016. So again, the numbers don't compute to record stock market highs.
And I'm going to go back to that word. It's a racket. Because when they were campaigning, particularly Hillary and Bernie, about the student loans and the student debt and how expensive it was, they wanted to give free college. They're never going to do that because the government, I read somewhere, and I don't have any of that in front of me, they make over 30% on those student loans. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to give that up. That's just rhetoric for getting a vote. And these students were buying it hook, line, and sinker. And they come out so in debt. I'm not sure I recommend kids go to college anymore. You can further your education, but do you really need to go to one of these big universities and go thousands and thousands of dollars in debt to go out and get a job? Many of them can't even get a job. So here they have this debt. And the Americans have this debt, and our 401ks and IRAs and all that, they're going to fall. They're going to collapse when this happens. You're not going to have that to fall back on, and that's a scary thought.
It really is.
Because I know a lot of people have spent a lot of their lifetime putting into that.
There was one state in New England, I can't recall which state, but their community colleges free tuition for community colleges in that state. It's a New England state, of course. Where else would it be? But perhaps it's in Bernie's state. Not sure, but there isn't anything in this world that's free.
No.
And it's people can't grasp that. And we haven't had really bad days in this country. I mean, we do have it good, but we've lost more than just our financial securities. We have, with not taking care of our financial securities, we have lost our freedoms and our liberties. Because when you're a bankrupt country, you're a bankrupt nation, more ways than just financially. So.
And I think the sad part of that is we have lost our liberties and our independence, and people don't recognize that because they don't know what they were.
No.
We've completely lost who we are and what we are. And we laugh about an all-black party or an all-female political party, but that is so symptomatic of how far we've fallen in this nation. I mean, we're going into a break. This time I'm right. We're going into a break. We invite your calls at 717-300-1218, 717-300-1218. Also, send us an email. You can just send that to powertalks@yahoo.com, powertalks@yahoo.com. We would love to hear from you. But we're going to take a couple of commercial breaks, and Melody and Beth Ann will be right back.
You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com worldwide. Freedom is never free. We need your support today at FirstAmendmentRadio.com.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
And we have returned. You're listening to Power Talks with Beth Ann and Melody Cedarstrom in the morning. Melody, you know, it is kind of, we're not doom and gloomers, but it is kind of scary when we talk about that debt and what that is going to mean for the American people. I think back to the time when this nation was in World War II and how, I wasn't there, but, you know, how devastating it was to the people. I mean, the depression of that day, and everyone was sacrificing for the boys overseas, and they had rationing on sugar and other things, and you know, that's why when I was asking you, what do you really see unfolding when that happens, and you know, the simple things, you see people walking around with these cell phones. They've all got a Coke or some kind of a big, huge diet drink or something in their cups, you know, and they go to the Starbucks or the expensive coffee shops, and we all seem to be enjoying ourselves. And I think that type of luxury living and pretense, anyway, will come to an abrupt halt, probably.
It will, because people will not be able to afford $5 coffees. They're not going to be able to afford to go out to Starbucks and every restaurant to have dinner. They're not going to be able to enjoy all these little luxuries that they have, because it all comes back to the dollar. It all comes back to inflation. It all comes back to hyperinflation, and we are no different. The only way we were different than other countries that have had the same problems as we have is because we were big enough. We have the reserve currency of the world, and that has allowed us to go just a little bit further than everybody else that had gone into debt and destroyed their currencies. So to that respect, we're a little bit different. But the day of reckoning is all the same. And it goes to where your currency becomes worthless. I mean, we've already lost 95% of our purchasing power with the dollar. I mean, we only have a little bit more to go. So once these countries around, and we're globalized now, we still do 85 to 90%, I believe, maybe about 90% of the global transactions are done in the U.S. dollar. But as I mentioned before, as you see Russia and you see, it's going to be all about trade. You have countries that are positioning themselves. We pulled out of the TPP. Yeah, I think the TPP was harmful for us as a country, but I also believe it should have been looked at, because now you have China going into these same countries that we were talking about trade, and they're shoring up the agreements with these countries. So there's going to be very little for us to deal with. And somebody says, well, we don't need their business anyway. Well, maybe we don't, but maybe we do, and maybe we did. That's kind of hard to say right now, and probably we won't know the answer to that until things begin to unfold and to collapse and say, gee, maybe we should have had that trade. But I believe countries are positioning themselves because they know what's happening. They know which direction that everything is heading. They know that a nation that is in debt, that is bankrupt, can't lead. Look at all the turmoil and the wars and the rumors of wars that are going on around this world. I mean, at least the United States was a leader. And we were sure things would pop up and so forth, but it didn't seem to be as severe as it is right now. So, again, we've lost a lot. We'll continue to lose. And unfortunately, people will lose everything that they've worked so hard for all these years. They won't be able to take care of their families. They won't be able to take care of their children and grandchildren.
Yeah, that is scary thoughts, and we, back in that day, like I was talking about, the day of Derry Brownfield, I remember him talking about, everybody had chickens in the yard, or they had a little garden in the backyard. I mean, people actually tried to take care of themselves, and they knew how. Nowadays, people don't even know how to can. They don't know how to can their food if they did grow it in the garden. If they figured that out, they don't. I think they can figure it out, but we've just lost that. We've become in such an instant society, microwave society. It has to be now. It has to be, instant, and survival is not instant. And I think it's gonna be tough times, and there's no doubt about it.
We look at what the causes of our decay, our nation's decay is, and our monetary failure. I mean, truly, it's spiritual decline and moral decay. Yes. We didn't follow the Constitution. We've created the Federal Reserve System. We have our government debt of fiat currency that's backed by nothing but faith. The debt, we talk about the debt. Look at the war mentality and the enemies that we have created. And China, I mean, they have an insatiable demand for everything. And we forget that they're communists. Which just, so we destroyed because we're not fixing the causes that have decayed our nation.
We're not fixing the causes, and I almost think that we're trying to ignore them on purpose because we don't want to deal with it. You've heard of people that they'll pretend an issue doesn't exist in their lives just because they don't want to deal with it. And I think we see a lot of that mentality with the American people now. They wanted to ignore how many in the Democrat Party, registered voters, truly believe in communism. How many of them truly believe in a socialism? I'm talking about the average Joe voter out here that's registered Democrat.
They don't know the difference. They don't know the difference.
They don't know the difference, or they want to ignore it. They want to believe it's still that Democrat Party that Grandma and Grandpa or great-grandma and great-grandma belong to, and it's not. And same thing with the Republican Party. But when you have the Communist Party backing your candidate, you'd think that would wake somebody up, but it didn't. Well, obviously it did some. Donald Trump, which is a non-politician, got elected. But those Democrats that are staunch Democrat, I've always been upset at anybody that's staunch Democrat or staunch Republican, because I think that means you're all about the party and not about the people.
That's correct, and not about
voters
this country.
Included.
It's not about. Yeah. It's not about the people. It's about this country, which is
the people. Are this country.
People are this country.
Yeah.
But more, it's the country, and so let's see how much time I am getting my quote in today, Beth. If it's
get that quote in.
At least once every week, I'm going to get this quote in. So I'm watching.
It's a marvelous quote, and I hope everyone really listens to what it says.
Well, this quote was by Abigail Adams back in November 5th in 1775, and I picked up this quote, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. And we had it on our website. It was on all our newsletters that we would send out, and because it really is, it is powerful. And again, this is Abigail Adams, and I'm probably a little early, but I'm going to go ahead and get it done, Beth.
Yeah, let's read her.
A patriot without religion, in my estimation, is as great a paradox as an honest man without the fear of God. Is it possible that he whom no moral obligations bind can have any real goodwill towards men? Can he be a patriot who, by an openly vicious conduct, is undermining the very bonds of society? The Scriptures tell us righteousness exalteth a nation. And it just so hits home with what we see and what we experience today.
And what we talked about today in the show. I mean, you know, it's we've lost who we are, and that's why we're here with Power Talks, to try and bring that back. We're not trying to scare anyone. We're trying to help you be prepared and to actually see what's taking place and how our liberties and our independence has been stolen from us.
We no longer have a fear, a healthy fear of God. We no longer have that.
No longer have that. There's not even a reverence for him. No respect for the church. None whatsoever. I mean, we see that in this day and age, unfortunately. No respect for faith. They want to talk about faith, but they have no respect for Christianity. And it's a time that I think our founding fathers never could have realized that we would allow ourselves to get to. It's more than if you could keep it. We just threw it away. Melody, it's been a pleasure to be with you. I'm heading into CSC Talk Radio. You can turn the shortwave dial over to 12160 and hear CSC Talk Radio. Thank you, Melody, for having me with you and for being my partner. And we will talk tomorrow with Power.
Bye-bye.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.